Hey everybody, welcome to episode 51. Today's episode I'm going to talk about the 80s anime Dirty Pair. I just got through reading the first one of these these are the Sunrise Animation Film comics. These are put out in like 89, 88 or 89. I've got the four of them. As you remember, I was getting these and I was showing to you as I was getting them in the mail. I got the first one, the second one, third one, and the fourth one. There's only one more. There's the fifth one, which is it's on its way. So who knows when it's going to get here. But like I said, I wanted to read it first so I could show you. And I knew that there was the TV show on YouTube. I'd watched the OVA, but I also watched the TV show, and the TV show hasn't been translated yet. It's in the process of being translated. There's a Kickstarter company, like I said, that was translating the whole TV show. I think that's the only thing out of everything that needs to be translated. And again, I don't know who the voice actors are going to be, and I don't know how good of a job it's going to be. It's supposed to be out on Blu-ray on 1080p. Like I said, the buy-in on it, the minimum buy-in to get the DVD or get the Blu-rays is $60. It's pretty steep. Here's the thing. I went on YouTube to see if it was there. I know it was on there subtitled, and that's the only place I really could see it recently. And when I say recently, I'm talking like maybe 2015, which I guess isn't super recent. However, I hadn't gone back and looked for it since then on YouTube, so I went ahead and did that so I could show you guys a little bit of the episodes. Because if it's on YouTube, I can show it on here. You know what I mean? I try not to show stuff, that isn't, I basically don't want to get anything flagged, but it's all on YouTube, so it shouldn't be an issue for me showing it on my video. I'll definitely give a nod to the person whose channel. Well, you'll see I'll just go to his whole channel and you'll see it. But the interesting thing is the videos that he has on there they're not 1080p, but they're 720, and they're raw, meaning there's no subtitles. But the thing is, they look amazing, and it's funny because it's raw. That's how I saw all this stuff back in the day. With Tora Tuesday back in in Ferndale when I'm in 88, 89, and the thing is, I also have I'm wearing my hat. It's a little nod to Pierre, who used to work there. If he ever sees this, he always wore a hat just like this, so kind of my nod to Pierre. But he's the guy that ran the Michigan Anime Society. So, well, he didn't. He was like the AV guy. He wasn't like the president of it, but he was one of like the founding members. Anyways, yeah, I want to show you some more. I want to dig more into Dirty Pair because, like I said, it's next to Robotech, and yes, Robotech, not the original Macross. Robotech's probably still my hands-down favorite anime of all time because it was the first one I really, watched, and I watched it, religiously. So my second favorite is Dirty Pair, and like I said, I mentioned this before with Dirty Pair. When I think of anime, like I said, when I think of Japanese animation, as I used to call it, when I think of that, the first thing that pops into my head outside of Tora Tuesday, and those people that were down there, is Dirty Pair. Maybe some Robotech because of some of the characters and the way Mikimoto did the character designs. But Yaz did the character designs for Dirty Pair, and of course, if you know Yaz, he's pretty pretty well known with his designs. And the thing is, his designs look like that look, this specific look, especially Yuri too. You'll see better pictures of her, but Yuri with her blue hair and the way it's the style and the way they drew the faces. This is when I think of anime, this is quintessential anime. That's the first thing my mind goes to is when I think of the actual anime is Dirty Pair. Because it kind of encapsulates a lot of things of that time. It was, it starred two female leads, and then as I learned as I got into anime, I realized, wow, a lot of these shows all have female leads. Everybody thinks that, nowadays with Hollywood making everybody a strong female, right? It's like, well, almost all of the anime back in the 80s, with the exception of a couple, all the main characters were all female leads. Whether it was Bubblegum Crisis, whether it was Gunsmith Cats, whether it was Ixer One, whether it's Dirty Pair, sure, Akira had pretty much, Kaneda was the male lead in that, but most of the, Gale Force is another one, or Gulf Force, or however you pronounce it, I always called it Gale Force. That's another one that was heavy, all female leads. And so I realized, oh, wow, a lot of the anime have female leads. I just start, this is just an observation I made back in the day, and I was like, oh, I think that's why I like it. Remember I said, I've already gone through puberty, and all my favorite Marvel and DC characters were all female characters, so the anime was just kind of a natural extension of that. And the way they drew everybody was like super hypersexualized, which, I was just like, oh, I really like this. I took to it right away. The funny thing is, in contrast, I was looking at modern anime, right, and nothing, you couldn't, outside of some similarities in the way some of these characters are drawn, right, you can clearly tell, okay, this is Japanese animation when you look at the old stuff, but it's like night and day compared to stuff nowadays. Stuff looks so different today, and to me, not in a good way. I love the old style better. I love everything about, the way they used to do that. I'm not a huge fan of how the Japanese draw, with the big eyes and little mouths and that type of thing. However, I liked the 80s versions of it, and I like the older stuff. I don't like the modern versions of how they draw things. And like I said, the characters are way over the top. And again, the other thing was, all those shows that I was watching back then were all like basically quasi-cyberpunk, dystopian world type of places, and they all took place in like, not necessarily alien worlds, but like worlds that you were just, hyper exaggerations of Japan, especially very influenced by, the Hiroshima bomb, Akira. That's his Otomo's, dissertation of the atomic bomb that was dropped during World War II. And, everything has that kind of look. There was very little, it was in there, but it was very little Japanesiness to it, meaning everybody wasn't wearing kimonos, everybody wasn't going to a Japanese festival, everybody wasn't constantly eating ramen and sushi, everybody wasn't constantly being traditional or stereotypical Japanese society. And I liked that. It's not that I didn't like any of the stuff in Japanese society. Obviously, I don't know if it's obviously, but I've got a bachelor's degree in, East Asian studies of Japan. So, I studied it pretty extensively, and, I don't, but I like the fact that it more focuses on a fantasy world or a sci-fi world or a cyberpunk world, whatever you want to call it, and it really focuses on a story. And for the most part, the ones that I like are the most, I think are the most fun. Dirty Pair is just plain out screwball fun. The other thing that's nice about, Kei and Yuri, this was Yuri, is Yaz originally designed them. He thought of the idea when he was to see women's wrestling, right? So there's a whole women's wrestling connection, and there's a whole thing constantly it's running through there where everybody thinks that they're female wrestlers. They're called Lovely Angels. They're trouble consultants, as they call them. They work for the 3WA, is that what it's called? 3WA. I can't remember exactly what it stands for, but it's, it has a very heavy female wrestling vibe going in it. So again, I love that too. So this is probably, like I said, next to Robotech, which is more of a long format, linear storyline. As far as episodic Monster of the Weeks, which is what I actually prefer, is Dirty Pair. So like I said, it's hard for me to show you this. I haven't scanned it in, and there are no CBRs. There's nothing available online for it. But But as you can see, I mean, they did a really good job. And the other thing I was noticing, right off the bat, is how crisp the animation cells are in here. And obviously, as my friend was pointing out, they had to have been taking these screenshots from 35 millimeter film, and just developing them into, developing the film and putting them into, just like they do a magazine, and putting them into this comic. But it's pretty awesome. This is the first episode of the TV show. There's a TV show, an OVA, and then there's the movie Project Eden, and then there's two other ones. Their names escape me right now. I'm not a huge fan of either one of those. I like Project Eden. And again, I saw Project Eden down there at Tora Tuesday. But we'll get to them. I'll show. They're all on this website, on this YouTube channel. And like I said, they're all in really, really pristine copies, and they're raw. And again, when we were seeing this stuff down at Tora Tuesday in the late 80s, we were getting it raw. There were no subtitles, because all of the stuff was coming from Japan, from one guy who was going over there, and he was bringing back the laser discs, and Pierre was, dubbing them onto tapes. I think a lot of times they actually just played the laser discs on their giant screen TV. Well, it's not, by today's standards, it's not big. It was like a 50-inch television back in 88, 89, which is, a monster television then. Now it's pretty much the standard is 55-inch. I think the standard at that time was probably like 19-inch or 27-inch. I don't even think it was a 32 yet. I think 32 inches were more or less standard in the 90s. And of course in the 2000s, 40-inch and now 55-inch. Eventually the standard will be 1,000 inches it'll be a whole wall. So we will be living in cyberpunk land, and probably a dystopian world as well. But To Kill a Computer is pretty funny. I mean, I'm going to play a little bit of it, and it's raw. There's no subtitles, and it's Japanese, so just warning you up front. I'm not going to go into exactly what the story is about, but essentially it kicks off with this cool romp where there's this computer that's controlling the city, and its name is Brian, and the angels wake up, Kay and Yuri wake up. Kay's, super hot, and she's super hot, but I mean, she's temperature, she's super hot, and Yuri is super cold because Brian controls like every system in the city, including the climate control. So they wake up, and then there's Moogie, the dog, or their cat thing, dog, giant bear, Chewbacca looking thing that's in there. And then, they're trying to figure out what's going on, and then they it's just a whole, like, long kind of screwball, funny joke thing going through as they try to discover how to do it. A lot of them in, like, precarious situations where they're hanging on stuff, and, you get a lot of leg shots, and there's a nice animatic of Yuri holding on to Kay's legs, and so you get there's a lot of butt shots in it, which is always nice. Fan service, people call that. And so yeah, it's pretty good. So I'm going to play you a little bit of this first. Just before I get going, I did notice, I thought that there's 5 issues, right? Now there's 26 episodes. Technically it's one season, but there's 26 episodes of the original TV show from 1985, by the way. I don't know if I said that. And I just assumed number 2 was the second episode. Well, it isn't. And then I figured, okay, well, which one is it? And I couldn't find it for the longest time. It's actually episode 8. And so the guy on here, he has these numbered weird. I'm not going to say wrong per se, but he has them numbered weird. Because if you look at an episode guide, the names, and this name actually isn't even the episode name, although this is. And this is episode 12, Little Dictator. This one's labeled. So some of them are labeled the correct names, some of them aren't. Maybe it's a lost in translation thing. I don't know. I mean, these things were made not that far, and they're made in the United States, and they were made, what do you call it? Actually, Haruko Takachiho, Studio New Sunrise. I think they're just crediting the animation team, but it says Sunrise Animation Film Comic. But it's by Viz Comics. I think Sunrise Animation may have been the one that did this, because obviously they would have had the, availability to the print, and Viz Comics just published it. Viz Comics is a U.S. publisher, so I don't know the exact history of these, but I'm thinking that maybe what happened is they ordered all of the prints from Sunrise Animation, and then Viz put them together, and Viz did the translation, Viz did everything, because I don't have the subtitle, but the translation seems to be kind of accurate. But let's go into the first episode here. I'm going to show you. Okay. Oh, because of that. Okay, so let's go to the... Let's turn that off. Alright, sorry, technical difficulty. I'm going to put you on pause for a second.